It's time for a look at the Premier League standings going into week 3. We'll make it brief since just 2 weeks completed and the title and safety races haven't developed yet. I'm using the PlayoffComputer app as the base for this analysis. If you are playing in a head-to-head fantasy Premier League or just about any league and want to analyze the title or playoff races in it, then check it out on the Play Store. First, the title race. Again, we're just 2 weeks into the season, so these numbers are not going to be firmly rooted for a while. The computer says that teams will need to get to 70 points to have any sort of realistic chance for the title, with 82 being the projection for what will be needed. So far, things have played out pretty standard from a mathematical probability point of view. We have a few 2-0 teams, a few 0-2 teams, and a large group in the middle. If we get 2 or 3 teams that start to dominate everybody else, that will likely rise, and vice versa. If everyone beats each other up, it may fall a bit. And for what it's worth, note this is all based on mathematical probabilities. There is no bias for or against, quote, good or bad, unquote, teams. Next, just a quick rundown of the teams that have started out doing well. As the season progresses, we'll dig a little deeper in each team. But for now, those that started 2-0 have an 8% chance to win the title and about a 92% chance to avoid relegation. First up, the betting favorite Manchester City took care of Ipswich and gets a couple more decent chances to rack up some early wins before their first big meeting against Arsenal. Brighton is one of the perfect teams so far after beating Manchester United, but that will be put to the test against Arsenal this week before a more favorable match against Ipswich next. And with that matchup between Brighton and Arsenal, we're guaranteed to lose at least one team from those with a flawless record. Arsenal beat Aston Villa last week, and after Brighton and the Spurs has that big game against Manchester City, so we might have an early indication of how things are going to play out soon. Liverpool is the last of the 2-win teams after beating Brentford. Big test against Manchester United before a couple more favorable opponents. The Spurs beat Everton to get up to 4 points, and that is good for around 5% chance of the title and 88% to avoid relegation. Another team of a big test against Arsenal coming up next week. Newcastle this week, who is also at 4 points, so this will be a huge early game to keep up with the big boys. Newcastle United with just a disappointing tie last week against what was supposed to be an inferior opponent. They don't have a tough schedule for the next 3 anyway to get back on track. Nottingham Forest also at 4 points after beating Southampton. Get the Wolves this week and then a tough game at Liverpool. Moving on to the race for safety. As with the title race, these numbers are highly suspect until a few more weeks are completed. The guess from the computer for what will be needed for safety is 45, which is unchanged from last week's guess. For the team starting out on the back foot in reverse order. Beginning at 0-2 puts one's title race odds at a mere 2%, with chances for safety being around 3 out of 4. Wolves, understandably, at 0-2 after 2 tough opponents in Arsenal and Chelsea. They get a few middle-of-the-road teams next to try to put some points on the board. Ipswich also started out with some tough matches and will try to get going against Fulham this week. Everton will have some good opportunities to turn things around against Bournemouth, Aston Villa, and Leicester. Crystal Palace might need to wait until next week to post a win as they travel to Chelsea this week before returning home for Leicester. Southampton, the last of the 0 points club. Brentford this week before hosting Manchester United. Leicester, the only team sitting at 1 point. That means a 3% title chance and 80% to be safe. They certainly aren't expected to do much, but will have a few decent chances to surprise people with Aston Villa, Crystal Palace, and Everton upcoming. That's it for now. Again, as these things progress, we'll be a little less brief and dig deeper into each team's chances as well as the numbers. Until then, enjoy your day.